the object-oriented programming. It is one of the very important part of the programming. Okay. And what we can learn from this chapter, we will learn about object. What is object? And then what is classes and what is field? And we will learn about the object behavior methods, and we are going to learn about object constructor. So we will learn about class and fields. Now I have this example. Did you remember the example that we just did before about the coordinate? So the coordinate, we know the point. We have x and y. And in the previous example, we want to calculate the distance. So you want to find the shortest distance. And this problem is similar. But now I want to say that this is one problem about city. I know this city, I know this city, this city, this city, and this city, and this city. And let's suppose I want to create 6. Okay, I have 6 cities, and then the first city is located in the x5 and y is 2. The second city is located in the x equals to 3 and y equals to 5. The third city is located in the 4, and so on. So the first one will be the x, and the second one is the y. Now, for example, I need to check what is the center point. This center point, for example, I want to make a warehouse. I want to make a warehouse system, and then maybe the warehouse can be located here. Okay, so the center point is 2.2. Okay. So I have this center point, and then I need to check what is the distance between every point to the center. So I need to know if my truck delivers a product from this point to this point, what is the distance? If my truck delivers a product from this point to this point, what is the distance? And so on. Okay. So how will you write the program to calculate the distance between a point and the center? This will be one solution. You already learned about the point system in the multi-dimensional array. We use 2-dimensional array, or in this case, I'm going to say it is bad solution. Why it is bad solution? Maybe you will, you still remember in the previous example, we have 2-dimensional array. The first dimension is the point itself, and the second dimension we have 2. So it is the index 0, it is index 1. So the x is index 0, this is index 1. Let's say we have point, point index 0, and then point in index 0 in the first one. Or we have point in index 0 and index 0. So if it is index 0, then it is the x. If it is index 1, then it is in the y. There is one option. But we can also have another option. For example, I'm going to get the input from the users, and then I would like to know how many city that I want to input, and then I'm putting the x coordinate. So the x coordinate, I know that it is index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, and so on. So if the x coordinate in index 0, then it is the x of the city index 0. Y coordinates also the same. If the y index 0, it means it is the number for the city index 0. So I can put for every city, I have x and y. For every city, I will have x and y, x and y, x and y. It is one solution. But I can say that it is bad solution. Because in this case, we have some kind of parallel arrays. 2 plus arrays with related data at the same indexes. So this I, and also we have this I. So 2 parallel arrays, x and y, with the same indexes, because this is the parallel array. So in this case, it is considered as poor style. I do not recommend to write this code, even though it works. Okay. So I'm going to teach you one kind of way. You can use like this one. This is what we call as the one-dimensional array. If you use the two-dimensional array solution, the one that we learned from the previous section, we have point I and point J. So you have two dimensions. This is also another solution. But in this chapter, I want to teach you using object. This problem will be easier to solve if there were such a thing as a point object. A point will store a city-x data, and we will compare the distance between point city, and then each point will have its own property, and the overall program will be shorter and clearer. So this is example. Why I can say it is shorter and cleaner? Because now we are going to create objects. What is object? For every point, this is one object. If I have another point, this is another object. This is another object. This is another object. This is another object, and this is another object. So in total, how many objects do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 objects. Okay. And for every objects, yeah, later we can give name, or yeah, we can just put a label. Let's say this is object 1, this is object 2. So we can distinguish between the object. When you learn about Java, you learn about main method. In the main method, we call this is the client program, because the client program will run. But now I will have another class, we call it point. What does it mean by this class? It is the point to make the object. So let's see. A class, okay, you know already about the class. A class name is, yeah, you can make a Java code with one class. It is an entity that represents either a program or module. So now, until now, you only have one class. One class, it can be a program or a module, or it can be also a template for a new type of objects. If we create a point class, it is a template for creating point objects. So if I have a column like this one, X, Y, so I can say that this is the class. And what is the object? I have the object 1 and the X is 2, comma 2, for example. I have object 2, for example, 1, comma 3. I have object 3, for example, 2, comma 5. So this is the object. And we need to create one class to make these three objects. So an object is an entity that combines state and behavior. We call this is OOP, or object-oriented programming, because it is a programs that perform their behavior as interaction between objects. So let's see. Our task is to create an object, and the object will need one class. So in the following slide, we will implement a point class as a way of learning about classes. Now, what I want to mention here is I want to introduce one diagram. We call it class diagram. In this point, I have two variables. The first, okay, maybe I will start with this one. We will define a type of objects. We name it as point. Each point object will contain X and Y data. We call it fields. And each point object will contain behavior, and we call it methods. And the client program will use the point object. Now I'm creating a class diagram. In this class diagram, the class name, as I mentioned to you, the name is point. So we put into the top. We have the name point. For every point, it will have fields. So we have fields or data members. Some other literatures, they call it data members. We can use fields. How many fields do we have? In this case, in a point, we have two, which is X and Y. So I'm declaring X, which is integer, and then I'm also using Y, which is integer. Let's just this, I will explain this more, okay? But now let's just use plus. Okay. After I know that we have two data, okay, we call this is variables. You know the variables. Okay. The variables, it can be considered as fields or data members. And we can make methods. So you already learned methods. Okay. Methods can be a void. Okay. It can be a written value type. Okay. And you can put also some kind of parameters. In this case, the method set location will have two parameters. The method translate will have two parameters. The method distance will have one parameter. Okay. And all of the methods are void. So you can see this kind of methods later in the outline in Eclipse. It will be easier if we have the point class. So I want to make a new point which is P1, and this new point will be 5, comma minus 2. So this declaration or this creation, I just need to make a new class, and the new class will be a new object, and this new object will have a value of 5 and minus 2, and I am going to use this value into this object or P1. So if I can say this P1, I have P2, and in this P1, I can have X, I can have Y. So the okay, let me put a little bit far. I cannot make it anymore. Okay, so the P1 will have value 5 for the X, and then we'll have value minus 2 for the Y. That's the meaning by 0.5 comma minus 2. If there is no definition of the value like this one, point with only the parenthesis, then the P2 is 0, comma 0. Now, yeah, you can see this class diagram. Okay. And the explanation is the two are the data. The X represents the X coordinate of the point, and the Y is representing the Y coordinate of the point. And the method name you need to define. So set location X comma Y, it is to define the point X and Y, and translate the X dy, it is to adjust the point X and Y by the given amount, and then the distant point, how far the point is from point P. When you do your team project, so I hope that you can create this new class. And you need to create your class diagram, and you need to create this kind of description. Okay, so in your team project, at the end of the team project or in the final report, you need to make like this description. So when I have a point class, let's say this one, I have a point class, and I have the field which is X and Y, and I have the behavior or the methods. So the set location, integer X comma integer Y, and then it translates the integer dx, integer dy, and then the distance, which is point. So I can make point 1. Okay, the X is 5 and the Y is minus 2. I have another point number 2. For example, X is minus 245 and Y is 1897. I have another point number 3. So this X is 18 and Y is 42. What about the behavior? Because this one, yeah, all the points will have the same behavior. Okay, they have the same behavior, but it depends whether you want to call the method or not. The class or the blueprint describe how to create objects. So we call this part is the blueprint. Why it is the blueprint? Because I will make X and Y for every point. When I have the point number 1, I will create 5 and minus 2. When I have point number 2, I have another X and Y. When I create a point number 3, I have also another X and Y. So this blueprint will be the basis to create your object. Yeah. So each object contains its own data and methods. Now we need to understand about fields. In the first part, we learn about the classes. So we learn about how we can create class and what is the class diagram. Now, what is field? I have the public class point. Now you need to pay attention on this code. In this case, I have no main method. Okay. Whenever we create a new class in Eclipse, we always create with main method. But now I don't have main method. The class point will have only integer x and integer y. And let's save this code into the point.java. Let me see. You will see point.java. Okay. In this point.java, we have only simple variable like this one. Now, the above code creates a new type named point, and then the point have two pieces of data, which is x and y, and both of them are integer. So in this case, we have only the data or fields, but still it does not have any behavior yet. So we will make the behavior later. Okay? Whenever I do with the point, okay, we have only the very simple point. So you will see the point min. The point min is the client example. Okay, let's see. Point min. In the point min, I have the point and I'm creating a new two objects. What is new two objects? The first object is P1 and the second object is P2. How can we create object? We call point. What is point? If you press Control, okay, press Control in your keyboard and then you put your mouse here. When you click here, then it will go to the class point. Okay. In the point, we have definition. When we create a P1, it will be a new point. And what is the first one? In the point, we have x and y. But there is no value. So the first value or the initial value will be x equals to 0 and y equals to 0. Now in this statement, I'm going to put the y of the object P1 equals to 2. Then x equals to 0, and then now y equals to 2. This is for the object P1. Now I'm making a new object which is P2, and again the x start from 0 and the y equals to 0. And you can see that this is still P1. Now I'm using the object P2. So for the object P2, the x, what is x? X should be changed into 4. Then x will be 4. And what about y? Y is still 0. Okay. So if you print p1.x comma p1.y, the result will be 0, 2. Why? Because P1, I do not define x0, but I just define y equals to 2. So the x is 0 and y is 2. Now I can do some kind of operation, mathematical operation. I want to change the P to x. What is the x in the object P2? It is 4. So I want to add the x of object 2 with 2. So the x, which is 4, will be added with 2. It becomes 6. Okay. And then P2.y plus plus. What is P2.y? In this case, y is 0. And there is no changes here, so y still 0. We have y plus plus, then the object P2, the y becomes 1. So the result, when I want to print this P2.x and P2.y, the result is 6, 1. Okay. If you run this, yeah, you can get the result 0, 2, and then 6, 1. The fields, it means the data. So a variable inside an object that is part of its state. Each object has its own copy of its field. So the declaration, it can be the same with what you already learned on the variable section. So we have type and name. If I have a public class student, I know student should have name, student should have ID, student should have maybe the address, phone number, and etc. And you will have, yeah, let's say I'm just giving 2 fields or 2 data. The first data is name and the other data is GPA. So the string is the data type for name and double is the data type for GPA. So you can define like this one. This is another object. And whenever you want to create, whenever you want to access, okay, access means you want to check the value. So accessing the fields, the classes can access or modify the object field. So the variable is using dot field. It is just to access. If you want to modify, you need to call the variable dot field equals to the value. So that's why you can see if you print, then it means you will just do p1.x. It is to access. And then p2.y equals to 13. Then it is to modify. Okay, I will stop here. Okay, I will explain the remaining in the next class on Thursday. Any questions?